kid. I played t-ball. I was in cheer. It didn't last long. My mom and dad took us everywhere. From a kid's perspective, we were the perfect happy family. But us being kids, we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. After the divorce, I was about 10 or 11 and things took a turn. My dad and brother moved out, and that's when my mom's addiction started. My my sister Kirsty was was 2 at the time, and she was living with us. And that's pretty much when my childhood ended. I was now 11 years old, not only raising my 2-year-old sister, but I was also watching after my mom. We were we were living in this little brick house behind the post office. Hell is what I would have called it. I hated that place. People were constantly coming in and out all during all hours of the night, and me and my sister were in our room most of the time hiding out. Me and mom would physically fight all the time. Not to mention I won most of the time, but we won't get into that. We rarely had any running water because the bills were never paid. Some days we didn't have electric, but thank God for food stamps because we always had food. I remember one morning during winter break, me and my sister woke up freezing because once again the electric was out. My mom was nowhere to be found. We ended up walking to our Aunt Linda's house to get warm. I was furious. Um, some months after that, mom and dad had a custody battle over Kiersey and Kyler. Mom lost, and dad took Kiersey from the house. I remember being both happy and sad at the same time. Happy that happy that she would be somewhere. I know she would be safe, but but I was also sad because in that house I was basically alone with no one to talk to, no one to distract me from my thoughts. Even though she was only two, even though she was only 2, I needed her as much as she needed me. Eventually, I got fed up and left to live with Nanny and Papa. After and from 12 to 16, Mom was constantly in and out of my life. But I was still set on taking care of her every way I knew how to. I was lying, stealing, and covering for her. I wanted, I wanted her to see me, to talk to me, and see that I was no longer a happy-go-lucky kid. Everything that I had seen and experience completely warped my mind. I was depressed and suicidal all through high school. The summer before my senior year, at that point, I was done with everything. I was done taking care of people. I had completely let myself go. I started drinking, smoking weed, and partying. My sister had seen me almost die from alcohol poisoning on multiple occasions. Why that didn't stop me is unbelievable. After I graduated, I went to college in Oklahoma City and hated it. I was completely alone, and my depression had gotten worse. I was there for two semesters and came back home in 2018. When I moved back home, I didn't go back to school. I got a job at Walmart in Poto, and that's when everything went downhill. Everything was going good for a few months, and then I made friends with other cashiers. One of my guy friends lived at the trailer down the road from Walmart, so that's where everybody partied. There were there were parties every single night, and I went every single night. There were some days I would go to work still drunk from the night before. I have drove home drunk several times. I turned, I took, I took turns sleeping with all the guys in the house, and there were about five of them. After that, I was sleeping with the girls. I stayed either drunk or high most of the time. I was mean and evil to a lot of people around me. I didn't I didn't want help from anyone who was kind to me. I made fun of Christians and joked about going to hell, completely out of control. I was a sad, suicidal girl who no longer cared about herself or anyone else for that matter. I remember one night, one of the guys brought a bag of hydrocodone to the house and asked me if I wanted some. I was already high at the time, so I was like, yeah, why not? That was the first time I'd ever snorted anything in my life. Eventually, it turned into a regular thing. I fell in love with the high that it gave me, and I knew how bad it was, but I didn't care. One night, a guy came into the party, and I was all about him, and he was all about me. We drank together, smoked together, we did several lines that night together. After that night, we were pretty much inseparable. We were dating on and off for a while, and eventually I felt what I thought was love. And let me tell you, I was obsessed with this boy. I quit my job because of him, but every breakup took a little piece of me. I started to lose my mind, and I drank more than I did before, and I got high more than I did before. I, rem- I remember one night we had just we had just had a fight, and I was having a complete breakdown. I wanted to die. So I so I grabbed the bag of hydrocodones and a bottle of vodka and went went to the bathroom. I remember there were only 4 in the bag, so I took all those and chased it with the vodka. Not a minute later, my friend came in, seen what was going on, and she shoved her fingers down my throat so I would throw up. But even after all that, I stayed with the guy. My family and friends told me how bad he was for me, and I shrugged it off. I didn't care. This all went on until April 2019. We all parted ways. I stopped talking to a lot of the people at the trailer, and it was just me and that guy most of the time. We eventually broke up for the last time June 2019. And let me tell you, I was spiraling. My depression was at an all-time high when he stopped talking to me. At that point, the only thing I ever thought about was how, when, and where I was going to kill myself. I would sit in the shower. I would sit in the shower with a knife and cut and cut and cut away at my legs. I have a scar on my thigh where I would continually cut and reopen that wound. Nanny asked me about it one day, and I lied and said it was a dog bite. But nobody knew how depressed I really was. I was good at hiding it. I've always been that girl with a smile on her face, even when I was dying inside. In July 2019, one night I was sitting in the shower with a knife in my hand. I was ready to die. I sat there with a knife on my wrist, just bawling. And I heard a little voice. At first, I ignored it. Then it came again, clear as day. The little voice said, "Sister, don't. Sister, don't." That little voice was my baby sister's voice in the back of my head. And when I think about it today, I know that God sent her voice to save my life that night. There was no way I was going to listen to him. So he sent her voice to save me. After what seemed like a lifetime of bawling, I dropped the knife and I got out of the shower like nothing had ever happened. Got on Facebook, and the very first thing I see is Pam Welch standing in the same place I am, giving her testimony. I watched the entire thing and I just cried. I messaged her that night congratulating her, and we got to talking about Mom, and she invited us both to church. I told her I was ready. It took a little convincing, but me and Mom both ended up coming. After one altar service, I was hooked on Jesus. There was no turning back at that point. As of 2019, everything that I had just told you has been erased by the blood of the Lamb. She doesn't live there anymore. My sins have been forgiven, and I am a new creation. I am a daughter of the Most High God. When people try to bring up my wicked past, I tell them Jesus has already dropped the charges. Colossians 1:13 through 14 says, "For he has rescued us from the kingdom of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of his dear Son, who purchased our freedom and forgave our sins." After everything that I've done, Jesus still saved me. Jesus still let me carry his victory. I know I'm not worthy of it, but he turns around and tells me, yes, you are worthy. No matter what you or anyone else thinks about you, Jesus says, I say you are worthy of victory. You are worthy of a place beside me in my Father's kingdom. After a lot of back and forth, between me and God, I'm finally back on track and in college. I run a whole business with my mom, and I'm a co-youth sponsor, which is the biggest blessing, seeing how much those kids love the Lord and watching them continually grow in their faith. I'm so incredibly blessed the Lord directed us here at Victory Worship Center. He's given us both a place to call home, a church family that loves us with everything they have. I thank God for every day for them and my best friends who inspire me every single day to be a free worshiper and to not be ashamed of who I am and who he's called me to be. Today I am free from the spirit of suicide, depression, anxiety, self-mutilation, homosexuality, pills, alcohol, weed, smoking, and unworthiness. The Lord has taken all those away and given me peace, a sound mind, and an undeniable happiness that's almost childlike. I'm still always smiling, but this time it's for real. This smile is hand-delivered by Jesus himself, and I'm never taking it off. I hope this spoke to at least one person. I hope my story inspires someone to take that leap of faith and trust that God's got you. Come home to him.